I switched over to the cell phone. I was having some issues with the webcam here. Hello, hello. We are just getting started. If you are out there, could you do me a favor and put a comment in, just a hi or here's a comment, something like that. I had to switch to my cell phone, and I just want to make sure I can see comments as they come through, just like on the desktop. But we're just getting rolling. Thanks for joining. If you guys have any questions, mealworms, superworms, I just got some wax in. I haven't posted to YouTube about that. I'll make a longer video about that in a little bit. But I got some of those in for a local bait store, so I got some of those that I'm playing with. Bradley, thank you for coming. Good to see you. It is getting a little warm in here. I've got a window AC unit, but it is not installed yet. So I gotta get that in. Top chat, live chat, all messages visible. There we go. All right. How are those mealworms doing? If you have any questions, ping me. Let's see. I wish I could see this on the desktop as well. Let me go try that. YouTube. Oh, I gotta switch profiles. So many profiles. All right, what do you guys want to chat about today? Toss me a comment in there. All right, so we'll see here. Got it. Okay. Oh, I'm a little rough today. I did not get much sleep last night, or not enough sleep, I guess. And today yesterday I got, hey Michael, yesterday I got a beetle tray built. So I don't know if you guys have watched that yet on the other channels. I've not made a YouTube video of that yet. But we need a more efficient way to do beetle swap, because right now for every single tray, we're taking that tray, dumping it into a mesh screen bottom 7-gallon cement mixing tray. So we put mesh on the bottom so we could sift it, built a little tower. And we're manually sifting the bran out of every single one of those. And as we scale up in the new facility here, that's not going to work. So yesterday I got some L-channel aluminum, and I had some wire mesh, just a chicken wire. It's nice and big, and so the beetles should be able to reach egg laying, or be able to reach the bran. So I just set it right on top of there. So I built that yesterday, and I'm hoping that lets us ramp things up with the beetle tray counts. We'll test it out for a little bit, make sure the aluminum works okay. I've done the mesh before, so I know that the beetles can lay eggs and they can reproduce. And there's a lot of folks that do like drop methods, but I can't do a drop method. That's not true. I don't want to, because I don't want to lose the vertical space. And so instead of having two trays stacked on top of each other, and that top tray has a mesh bottom and the beetles are laying there as they're going down, what I've done is inserted that mesh bottom into the tray itself on top of the bran. So we'll see how that performs, make sure they can't climb out or figure out a way to get out. I might need to make the side a little taller. I think it's only an inch tall right now, but we'll see how the one does. And then I'll probably get a local metal worker to build a bunch of them. I did one yesterday, and I'm handy, but I did not enjoy that. And my craftsmanship with metal is not super great. So we'll get somebody local to build a bunch of those for us. If you guys have any questions on mealworms, superworms, anything, please let me know. I'm just trying to get some things in order in the office here. It's a little flustered or clustered because of the move. So a little disorganized. I don't have shelves or anything built in here yet, so that's sort of frustrating, but we'll get there. I'm focused mostly on production out there. As you can see, the drywall is not finished. I don't need anything fancy, and I'd much rather get production rolling and do stuff like this than worry about painting the walls a pretty color. So, all right. Worms are doing good. Lots of pupa the last few days. Perfect. Getting a few beetles now. I'm just making friends and beetles seem to have deformities, for example. Yes, that is a totally normal thing. And the question I was going to ask you is, what's the percentage? You're going to have deformities just in general. It's Mother Nature. If you're getting it perfect, something is amazingly correct. So the deformities, a couple things can happen or trigger that. So one is low humidity and moisture when the larva pupates into the pupa. They need a lot of moisture to do that. And so if they don't have a moisture source, a really good example is like when I ship them. So I ship them out on Mondays. By the time they get to somebody, depending on where you're at in the US, it could be 3-4 days, sometimes 5 days. And that's going to stress them out. And they may not be ready from a size perspective to pupate, but the stress has triggered them to pupate. They want to continue the species. That's a normal thing. And so they'll pupate in there, but they might be smaller and they may not have the moisture going into that. And then those pupa, when they hatch, can have some of those deformities. The other thing that can happen is during the pupa stage, if the humidity isn't high enough, and high enough is relative to what you can stand. The higher the better, but as you go higher, you get up into that 80, 90, 95%. You're looking at mold, moisture issues, moisture buildup. It's not a fun thing. So, and grain mites, almost forgot about that. How could I do that? So, I usually keep it about 70 in there. But what you can do if your humidity in the room that you've got your mealworms or wherever they're at is low, look at creating a microclimate just for your pupa. So if you've got enclosed drawers, or if you have the ability, hey, Supreme Gecko, if you've got the ability, Sherry, I see that comment, I'll get right to you. If you have the ability to enclose those somehow, or put like a lid on top of it, on top of the pupa tray, and then, take a paper towel, lightly mist it. Don't drench it, don't have it dripping, just lightly mist it, put it in the tray and close it up. You've now created a microclimate in there that's going to have higher humidity than the general area. So, that might be a bit overkill for 5 to 10% though. They'll be deformed. They're not going to produce. So, if you want perfectly clean beetles, you could take those out if you want, but they should be just fine. And unless you start seeing it get really out of control, you start to get up into like 20, 25, 30% of your beetles having that. That's probably when I would try to do something about that. Sherry, thank you for the great shipment. 4,000 mealworms, very healthy, excellent survival rate. Pupas already. Awesome. That's one of the good things about shipping and not using chemicals. So we don't do any sort of chemical stuff here because I want them to go out and pupate because folks are buying them to start their farms. So that's awesome that they're already doing that. That's a good jump start. Michael, I've used window screen mesh in the breeding bins, which is easier to work with than sheet metal, but can't use the brand, just falls through. Correct. So when I first did the beetle mesh system, I had it separated. So one tray on top of another, basically. And I found that the wheat bran, the big flakes that would stay in there, they would eventually fall through as the beetles moved around. And beetles just don't like being naked and exposed like that. You could try like an oatmeal or a flat oat, rolled oat, something like that, so that's a bigger, chunkier thing. But I just found that production was drastically lower with that tray on top of with space where there's a drop. And so I abandoned that idea quite a while ago. But now that we're going to need to do more production, I'm doing the tray on the mesh right on the wheat bran. And I'm going to sprinkle in wheat bran in there, and I'll probably have like a little dish of. I started experimenting with earthworm diet, and what was the other one? Chick feed, unmedicated chick feed, as just an additional nutrient source. So it's not like I'm using that exclusively because it's more expensive than wheat bran. But I ground up the chick feed, and then put that on a little dish for the beetles just to see if they'll eat it. And they do like it. They are eating it. What's interesting is it moves around the bin. I should probably do a slow-mo of that. That would actually be pretty cool. They like to be under it, right? Like they're darkling beetles. They like to be under things and in the dark. And so that thing keeps moving around, which is fun. Sherry, I have too many beetles to hand sort using the egg carton method. Yes, egg carton method was a big help. I think the first person I saw that from was Scott, Scott down at Space Coast Mealworms. So he made a really good video of that when he was still raising mealworms. He still builds he's got his laser cutter. He actually bought a bigger one last time he mentioned it. And he's still making all those trays, but he's not raising mealworms anymore. But he made a really good video of like the method for doing that. You pour them, just naked beetles, right? So sift out your substrate, pour those beetles, live and dead, right onto an egg carton. The paper ones are what I've used and what I've seen others use. I don't know if the styrofoam ones work or not. Sherry, are you using the paper or the styrofoam? Somebody had a question about that last week. I can't remember which platform that was, but the live ones stick to the egg carton and you just flip it over, let the dead ones fall out. You're going to lose some live ones there. Shake that off in a tray and then rinse, repeat until you're satisfied that you've got enough beetles. All right. I was going to write something down. Time lapse. Paper. Okay, cool. Thank you. Time lapse of beetles and chick feed on lid. Oh, Supreme. I'm sure you just mentioned this and you did already watch, but what causes people to not hatch out? They turn black. Too little humidity? Yes. So too little humidity is the biggest culprit there, basically. You're going to have some die-off. It's going to occur. And so, unless it's more than 5 to 10%, I know that Bradley mentioned above his beetles were being deformed about 5 or 10%. That's a good number. From a die-off perspective, just period dying off, 5 to 10% is not too bad. But if it's happening a lot, it could be nutrition going into pupation as well as moisture. So as long as your humidity is okay. Did you hear me chat about the microclimate, like trying to create a microclimate just for the pupa once they've pupated? That's a really good thing. I walked through that earlier for Bradley's question. And the turning black kind of sucks because as you're processing them or messing with them, the black ones are like gooey at first, and it's like, it's pretty gross. Not fun to play with. But they do dry out pretty quick. So generally they're not going to just stink like crazy. And as long as it's a low amount, the smell won't be too bad. All right, so time lapse. That reminds me, I made a time lapse of us moving into the insect farm, and I never got that processed. I'll put that right in front here. Yes, on microclimate, we'll try. Yeah. Black mealworm pupa pudding. Yeah, pupa pudding. Oh, that's a good descriptor there. I like that. Oh, good one. Oh man. I just got a bait shop customer. They opened up in Ashland. They're a trolling motor and boat repair store, and they also sell live bait. And so I went and chatted with them last week about mealworms and superworms, and they were on board for that. So they're selling those now. And they also asked about waxworms, and I've looked into waxworms in the past, but the adult form is a moth or a flying creature, and I'm not equipped for flying creatures. And I don't want them mixing and landing in with the mealworms and the superworms, that sort of thing. So I'd always stayed away from them. But I picked up, I think it was 5,000 I ordered, just to get them, just to play with them a little bit, get familiar with them, and get some waxworms to this bait store and just kind of see what was out there, get a little bit more familiar with it. My plan with the ones that I have is to they don't go into cold storage like mealworms, so you don't want to store them at 40 degrees based on what I've read. You want to be at like 55 or 60 to slow them down so that they don't pupate as quickly. But my plan is to take them and put them into I need to get an aquarium, just a simple small glass aquarium, a waxworm breeding isolation room, right? Because they'll fly and go everywhere. I'm wondering like a grow room or a grow room, a grow tent. Um, that might work. That would create its own little area in there. A waxworm grow tent. I wonder what the temperature would probably stay normalized to room temp. Friend bred them in a large cheese ball plastic containers. What is a cheese ball plastic container? I gotta Google that. The downside I have with glass. Oh, yeah. I gotcha. It's a good excuse to eat some cheese balls, right? The first thing that comes to mind is I'm a huge Office fan. Literally, like one of my friends made me a crocheted Dwight. I'm big into The Office, the U.S. version. There's an episode where Michael's just sitting there just eating cheese balls. It was one of the skits. That was funny. Anyway, yeah, you basically create a little breeding room for that. Interesting. Well, some of the it was actually good to order these and just get the experience because as they came, they are in sawdust. They're not in wheat bran, which was interesting. And then there are already some that have pupated, so they've made these little cocoons. But they made little cocoons, and they're going to start popping at some point. So I think I'm going to try that cheese ball thing. I'm trying to think if I have anything that big at home. We don't have any cheese balls, but I might have to do that. Business expense, right? I just heard my phone dinged at you guys. Oh, okay. I think I scheduled this for we're gonna stop at 3:30 Central, so we still have another 38 minutes or something. If you guys have any questions, throw them out there. I'm kind of checking things out. Trying to this morning I was talking to a good friend of mine to work on a new sifting setup to basically build a conveyor, a vibrating conveyor. There's lots of options out there from a vibration perspective, but they're pretty costly. So we talked through some different ideas on just how to build one of those things, at a decent price for a small business that's still going to work. Not buying just junk material, but what I'm thinking is having a kind of a conveyor belt slanted back and forth, different sections slanted back and forth to do different sizes, and then have the sifting like plates that are in each one of those layers, have them adjustable or removable so that we could use it for mealworms. You can swap it out with a bigger one for superworms, and then things like dubia roaches. So those things you need a totally different size and shape. You need a circle instead of the slat. So we'll see what we can patch together there. And now I'll post all of it, so it'll all be out there. I wonder if you could put a hole on top that you could keep plugged until ready to harvest. Unplug the hole, put a vac hose into the hole, and suck up all the moss before opening the top. Or, like, what if we just walk outside and let them outside? Are these like native species? I probably shouldn't do that. That wouldn't be a good idea. We do have a vacuum though. You'd have to have an intake, right? So if you're going to suck at the top, you're going to need, like a cut somewhere else, and you just plug it when they're reproducing, right? So you can reuse it, but cut a hole somewhere so that the air goes in. And I'm assuming, like, I think what I read, this is a long time ago, I looked at this from a breeding perspective. They lay in the bottom substrate stuff, and so the eggs are down there. I don't, like, they're not up on the walls or anything like that to just get sucked off. So that might actually work. So waxworm grow tent, that would kind of be overkill if you could control them, put all the cocoons in there. And then, yeah, a small meshed hole. There you go. Like super glue and put it on there. Or like a cork, right? Like not a wine bottle cork, because those are all smushed, but like what am I thinking of? Oh, brewing beer. That's what I'm thinking of. That the cap that goes in the top. Like you put one of those on the side, just a plug, something like that. I gotta write all that down. That's good stuff. I really didn't have any interest in breeding these, but if they start moving, then it might be worthwhile. Cheese ball container. I also wonder, like, would the moths just die on their own as they grow? That'd be the other thing, is you may not even have to remove them, and they may just die on their own. Although beetles live like 12 months or something and stop laying after 2 months, or almost basically stop laying. My friend said they were super easy to breed. Yeah. Speaking of beer, have you ever tried spent grains as a feedstock? Yes. So, Michael, I actually used to brew my own beer. And so what you need to be careful of is to not get it too wet. So if you can get a good source for it, the problem I ran into anyway, was from a small scale. The breweries, even microbreweries and small ones that are locally owned and just a guy making his own beer in a business, they produce so much of it that they don't want just anybody walking in and getting a 5-gallon pail every now and then, unless you know the people or something like that, or can chat to them and with them and figure a schedule out. But a lot of times they'll have pig farmers. I can't remember if cows can eat it or not, but pig farmers were big on just coming and picking it up and getting rid of it for the brewery's perspective. Like, they didn't have to dispose of it. Somebody came and picked it up all the time and took all of it. But yeah, spent grains for mealworms are a great option because it's got moisture in it, and it's soft enough. Like, they can't. They have a really hard time eating something that's hard, right? So like chick feed, you want to grind that up to really be optimal, because they're going to expend a lot of energy to try to bite into that pelletized chick feed that's been compressed and is hard and dense, right? And so what that spent grains does is it's moistening up that seed or the grain and making it soft, so that the mealworms can eat it easier. They can use their energy to grow instead of their energy to eat, which is great. Anytime you can save them energy, they'll put that into growing and they'll grow faster. One of the things that I'm going to try is I am going to sprout barley grain. So I bought 50 pounds from Born Feed, where I get my wheat bran. It's in the deep freeze right now. I chatted with Mike and said, can I freeze it first? Is it still going to sprout? I talked about what I was doing. He said, yeah, it should be fine. So my plan is to take it out, sprout some, and then see if that's sprouting. Like, they're not going to be moist like when they go through that, from a brewing perspective, when they go into that process and they're like wet all the way through. With the sprouting, it's at least going to create that hole that ideally they can get in there. Now, what I'm curious to see is if they'll eat all of it. If they don't, and that grain gets stuck in there and it stays in there, my worry is, from a processing perspective, are they going to have any issues, or are we going to have any issues as we sift that and harvest it? But we'll see. I've got it in there. My plan is to, I think it's got another day left before I can do anything with it, and the weekend's coming up, so I'm just going to hang out. But I might come over and start some on Sunday when I come to give moisture to the mealworms that are going to ship out on Monday. My friends said they were I think I would like to promote the frass. Any suggestions? Do you sell it well? So, Sherry, that's an awesome question. I am struggling with frass. What I'm struggling with is that people in the Midwest, unless they come from the coasts, so the folks on the coasts, East and West Coast, are very familiar with it, especially the cannabis growers. So as cannabis becomes a bigger industry, as it becomes, moves into medicinal everywhere, ultimately recreational everywhere is probably what's going to happen. There's going to be cannabis growers all over the place. There are right now, like the state of Missouri, there's a ton of growers. And so the cannabis growers know of it. You can say the word frass, and if they have been on the coasts, they'll know immediately. You don't have to explain it. If you say the word frass to somebody and they look at you like, then they haven't heard of it. It's going to be a tough sell, basically. But as it becomes more known, I don't market my frass at all. The reason I don't market that is twofold. One, it's an expense. And right now I'm focused on getting the new facility going. And there's just, I don't want to spend that money that's there because every so often something happens here that I didn't plan for. And so I'm kind of holding off on that. I'm doing kind of a grassroots marketing, going to events and whatnot. And what I'm going to start doing is using it. My neighbor runs an organic farm over here. We're going to start doing tests where we put frass on part or half of a crop that is going on over there and leave the other half frassless and see what production looks like, actually get some raw data, be able to say, yes, we grew it and we've seen what it does. Here's how it works. And I don't have a green thumb. We just started a garden again this year. It's been several years since we did it. So hopefully we can get some tests done to be able to, get some pictures, right? Like the proof is in the pudding. If you can show folks pictures of things, there's a couple studies out there. I remember one specifically for tomatoes that talked about the impacts there. But it's something that is going to require a lot of education for the consumer. And I don't have the funds for that yet. So I've been giving a lot of it to friends, family, things like that. There's a couple of grow shops in Columbia and Jefferson City that have it because those folks know what frass is. So I would say it's definitely doable, and that market's just going to grow. What you need to look into as well is your state and federal guidelines for selling frass. If you market it, if you label it as a fertilizer, my understanding, based on what I researched for the state of Missouri where I sell it, based on that, if you list it as a fertilizer, have any sort of claims about it as a fertilizer, and put the NPK on the actual packaging, you have to register it as a fertilizer. You have to go through in the state of Missouri, there's a Missouri Board of Fertilizer or Fertilizer Board of something, and go through the process of vetting that out with them. They require consistent and routine testing. So you're going to have frass tests. I do mine about once every year or two because mine don't change. My values don't change because I'm using the same stuff in the frass that goes out the door. And so you've got to go through very routine testing. You're going to have to potentially update your label because your numbers can change and they have to be pretty accurate and precise. And you're also going to pay a lot of fees, both state and federal, if you sell it as a fertilizer. So that's going to vary state to state. There might even be some county or city rules based on where you're located. So definitely research those things for me, if you're looking to sell it as a fertilizer. If you want to sell it, what I do is it's sold as a soil amendment. And so when I talked to the Fertilizer Board in Missouri, they said soil amendment, no NPK. I don't have to abide by any of the regulations because it's not marketed, advertised, sold as a fertilizer. So definitely something to do some research in and make sure that for wherever you're at, you're abiding by those standards for your state. Not sure if they do die before you harvest the worms. Your point about hardness, I failed the whole barley and oat groats. Yeah. Hey, Aaron, welcome. Sorry, I was on a roll there for Sherry and talking about frass. Good to see you here. Can't wait to hear more about the sprouted barley test. Yes, I will. I'm going to start that. I used to sprout grains. Actually, before I did the mealworms, one of the things I originally got into mealworms for the chickens that we had at the time. And one of the things I tried before the mealworms was sprouting grain to do sprouts for the chickens. So, worst case scenario, if they don't eat the grain at the actual kernel of that, my thought is to at least sprout and get the greens. Because if you can get greens, what we're doing now is we're harvesting like clover, especially on the organic farm and even from my yard. I know what's out there. We don't use fertilizer. So you want to be careful with that, but it's also potentially introducing bugs. And so what's really nice about the sprouts is I can sprout those in a controlled environment year round and provide green, good nutrition to those mealworms. The other interesting thing is microgreens are becoming a bigger, like small business. Like that's been booming recently. It doesn't take a lot of space. You can do it in a shed type thing. It kind of reminds me of mealworms in a way. And so I'm curious to see, what happens with that. But worst case scenario, they don't eat those kernels. Ben has chickens, and so Ben, who works here, so Ben can take those and feed them to his chickens and get them a good nutritious treat. So all good, all good. Let's see, Aaron. I breed superworms and sell them online at a relatively small scale. I sort the beetles from the substrate, medium-sized mealworms from the baby grow-out bins every other week. Use sifting pans and shakers similar to yours. Yep. However, when they age up, I can't figure out a way to sort the fully mature worms from ones growing slower in the same bin. Do you have a method to sort cell at consistent size? Yes. Are we talking about superworms or mealworms? You're talking about superworms. Okay. Yes. So what I find works really good for getting the superworms, I only sell the large ones. And so the folks that sell the smaller ones, you could probably apply this same idea though. I wish I had it in here. I use for mealworms. Stay with me now. I know we're talking about superworms. We got it. For mealworms, I use Scott Jost over at Space Coast Mealworms down in Florida. He makes a mealworm pupa tray sifter. He uses a laser cutter, created it, designed it, built it, and sells them on his website. The slat for that, or the opening, it's just a big thing for it. I'll find the URL while I'm sitting here describing it. Space Coast Mealworms pupa tray. What that's really good for is, one, getting the mealworms pupa, but two, I use it for superworms. So I'll pour a bin of supers into that. And it's really good I use wheat bran as my substrate. And so the wheat bran goes right through because it's a longer slat, or cutout, slit, whatever that is. I don't know why I can't come up with that word right now. But because it's a lengthwise thing, it's not mesh. It might even sift things like oats through that. And so try using that. Oh, I don't like how the mobile makes the comments go away after somebody comments. So I'm using both here. I have some of his larger pupa trays. I'll have to give it a try and maybe make my own tweaks for my sizes. Yes. So the other thing is, depending on your size or how many you're going to sift at a time, he sells a mealworm sorting tray kit. It's stacked sizes, but you could do that same principle of potentially just making your own, because I think the ones from Scott, they're geared for mealworms, but you could use them for superworms. But what I found is, if you've got any sort of volume, and if you're at the point where you're using the shaker to expedite the sifting process, you're probably at the point where the size that he sells those mealworm size trays, sorting sizes, it's probably going to be too small. But if you test this out and it works for you with the large ones, reach out to Scott. He's on social. He's in the Mealworm Farming Co-op group. He's an admin there. He engages. He was actually on the live this morning I did for the co-op group. Reach out to him and see if he can make you a large, like the XL pupa tray or the large pupa tray, if he can make you that size with different size cuts in it, different size holes, so that you can potentially like somehow stack those together. I actually took, I'm wondering now if he actually made these. I've got this. Let's take a little trip. We're going to go out to the facility here, the new building. I got to turn the lights on. I closed everything up. Da-da-da. Okay. So let's come. Where's the flip around? Yeah, there we go. Oh, flip it. There we go. So this guy, that's the normal XL pupa tray for mealworms. And then he's got these different sizes. And what I'm going to do, this is going to be a mealworm sifting table. So imagine this horizontal instead of vertical, and it's going to shake. And I got that's a big project. I'm going to start working on that. But he already has these. So I wonder if these could also be used for the superworms. And if you could, I know at one point I had these guys. Let me get a little closer. I had these connected to a 7-gallon cement mixing tray. So it was actually in my sorting tower that we were sorting with. Oh, let me see if he's got that on his website, because that could be exactly what you're looking for. All right, let's head back in here. It's a little cooler in here. Okay. I have some of those larger trays. I might have a friend 3D print one for me with few. Yes, that might work. Actually, one of the things I did before my 3D printer broke is I printed out a circle sifting tray just to quickly sift them. You could do that exact same thing. Let me look at Scott's website here real quick to see if he's got these different options. And he sent those to me to test. I don't see him here. Let me take a note to reach out to him. If you can ping me, Aaron, like shoot me an email if you're comfortable with that, or message me on a social platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Well, TikTok now doesn't really work very well. Facebook, I said that already. Or send me an email, justin@midwestmealworms.com, and just remind me of, hey, it's Aaron from the live with the superworms. I'm going to reach out to Scott and see if he has any of those and what they're called, so we can connect some dots there and maybe do some testing. I don't have any superworms to sift, and I could put them through that. Yeah. Gotta run. Hey, thanks for coming, Bradley. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Hopefully everybody's getting some good info out of here. We'll do. We could definitely figure out something. Yes, absolutely. And like one of my goals, Aaron, longer term, I mentioned this earlier. I'm not sure if you were here yet or not. I'm going to start working on designing a small farm-friendly, both cost and size-wise, and maintenance-wise, sifting machine and sorting machine. I want to be able to sift and sort mealworms, superworms, dubia roaches, all kinds of stuff with different gaps. And I want it to be a system that just a regular person like me, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not an engineer, I don't know how to do hydraulics, I can't fix those big blue machines that come from other countries if they break. And so I'm trying to work through a vibration machine that can be set up to do that. And my goal is I want to be able to do superworms as well as mealworms and dubias. So that's actually the start of what I showed just a moment ago, is to try out that process to figure out how long, like in that span, is it going to sort effectively, or are they going to get through there? Like, are we going to have to make, instead of, was that like 1 foot of the large space, are we going to have to make that 2 or 3 feet, right? So I'm going to start testing that hopefully next week. Every week I say I'm close to testing it, and then something else comes up here, but we'll get there. All right, let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, all good. I also do DV as a larger scale, 45 gallon totes full. I currently use the bucket sorting method with the holes around the bottom. It's pretty inefficient. Yes, that's what. Who did I see? They made a video of that. Jersey Worms, I think it was him. He's got a YouTube channel and he does dubias, and he had the bucket method. And I saw somebody else, it was a long time ago, I met somebody who was raising snakes and reptiles and had taken some Rubbermaid containers and drilled holes in it, right? And so my thought there is to, like, the different sizes of the mealworm sizes that Scott prints out. We do the same thing, that's, like, make a plate that is different, that is a hole, right? And then we sift that way, and they all fall through. The ones that should fall through, bigger ones keep going. And they collect at a certain area too. That's the other thing we're trying to figure out. Should they drop down into a bucket, or do they just keep going down that conveyor and then drop off into something? And I'm leaning towards the latter there. But hopefully we can get something built that it's not going to be like $5. It's going to be, you're going to need metal and some shakers potentially, and then somebody to cut those plates. But I think the idea of it is that once it's built, it's something that's going to last, and it's something that is pretty simple in the sense that it's not a giant machine that has all these moving parts and electrical components that you have to go either buy or I don't want that. I want to be able to build something that we can all use, that's not going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. As I look at vibration machines online and different options, just to even get the motors and stuff, people are asking thousands and thousands of dollars for that stuff, and I can't figure out why it's that expensive. Somebody's got the market on that for sure. All right, 15 more minutes here, and then I'm gonna have to get running. I need to get some supers fed. I feel like I had something else to do. I probably wrote that down. Oh, here's my waxworm notes. The cheese ball container. How long do they live as moths? All things to research and play with. I do need to get these ones. I've got the tray sitting down below me. I put them in the office that way in case they start turning into their moth form. They're at least contained within the room here. Aaron, do you have a YouTube channel or any sort of posts about your system and what you do with dubias? It'd be really interesting to see that. I want to do dubia roaches here. I need to get with the mealworms and superworms and ramp up that production. But I've got a single tray of dubias just to start getting familiar with them, just to see what it's like. But my thought is, right now we're going to go 14 or 15 trays high so that we can still see in the bins, and they're not ridiculously tall. We don't want to go all the way to the ceiling. It becomes cumbersome to move them around. So we've got that space above there now that dubias need it warmer. My thought is to put like garage hanging totes up there. And then when I need to feed them, throw on some stilts, like some drywall stilts, and just walk around and boom, 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 boom. So that's a way down the line though. I got other things to do before that. Pretty ingenious concrete shaking table people made of just an old electric motor attached to a table. Yeah, like, and you weight it a certain way so that it's off center or off. What the hell's that called? It shakes, right? So instead of just running and being a circle, it just shakes like a grinder, right? Put a weight on there, and as that thing turns around, it could just be a big bolt or something. You've got to make it sturdy enough that you're not going to hurt yourself by that thing flying off or something. Okay, yeah, if you find some good videos of them, let me know, because what I'd like to do is keep that sort of stuff in mind as we're building the test model of the sifting system. Because we got to sift out frass, the pupa, large worms, well, pupa and beetles, large worms, medium, and micro maybe. I have some folks that raise reptiles and they want micro ones. Yes, sir.
We've harvested a lot of Napa.
Nice.
And there's a bunch of scrap in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Throw it in.
I'm gonna hydrate and brand, and I'm
Okay.
gonna run out of here.
Okay, good deal. No worries. Enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You bet. You bet. That was Ben. He brought over some Napa cabbage for the mealworms. So we put those into the colony, like the stuff that's staying in the farm. So the larger mealworms that we're keeping to pupate, the trays that are actively pupating, and the beetles. And so that way, like the mealworms that are from like babies, right, as they get the beetles sifted out from babies to harvest, those guys are getting consistent water gel crystals, so that we can control the rate of that, keep it consistent, but also we want the frass to be consistent. If we start mixing in all sorts of stuff, the frass components can change, and also be just a different variant, basically. So talking about Grand Mill, I pick up brand from, they have wheat germ for the same price and tried out without any issues compared to the brand. Have you tried out germ? I have not. What's the nutritional content? Like, I wonder, wheat brand versus wheat germ. Health benefits. I'm looking for like a nutritional breakdown. Calories are almost double for germ, higher protein, and maybe the only drawback being higher fat as well. That may be a very good thing. Have you noticed, like, do you mix them together? Is that what you were doing? We germ for the same price. I tried it out without any issues. I wonder if it turns a much darker color than brand and is easier to tell if it's spent. Ooh, that's interesting. That's always one of the things that, like, we'll get into some trays that we think are ready to be sifted and harvested, and it takes forever, right? Because if there's any substrate left in there, it just gunks things up and it goes much slower. When it's just the mealworms and frass, it's like lightning fast to sift that stuff. So I wonder if it's turning darker because the nutrition going in is different, right? Like if you feed your mealworms or supers, I don't know if the supers do this, but if you feed them like carrots, then the frass starts to get an orange tint to it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, 100% germ, 100% brand, and 50-50 of the same weight of worms in each bin for 2 months. They were all about the same weight at the end. Interesting. I wonder if I can get wheat germ. I'll have to ask my supplier. Because one of the things I'm actually starting to try to think through and plan for is any supply chain disruptions with commodities like wheat and corn and whatnot, affecting the ability for us to get wheat bran. So if wheat germ is also an option and they thrive on it and there's not a production decrease compared to wheat bran, that could be pretty awesome. Processed germ versus brand can be great alternative sources of both byproducts of making flour. Yeah, and I have a I don't know if I posted it to YouTube yet or not. I made a video recently where I ground up the chicken feed, the unmedicated chick feed, to turn it into more of a powder so that the mealworms can eat it easier, especially the babies. The babies really thrive on small particles, right? You put a piece of wheat bran in there, it's a flaky for a baby mealworm. It's a huge thing of flakiness. And if you give them the ground up stuff, it's a much easier, they have a much easier time of ingesting it. So even if I could get it, if it comes as a pellet and I have to process it myself, if I can't get wheat bran, I'll take the hit on the time for grinding it up. But yeah, I'll get what's really interesting is like the feed supply places, they'll get you a sample of something, right? They'll say, hey, I need it only comes in 100-pound bags or something. I don't need 100 pounds of it. All right, here's 10 pounds. Try it out. It's really awesome. Might depend on, wheat germ from Born. And I bet that they also can get me the precise nutrient details on it. I'll reach out to him after this. Awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think, sir. Aaron with an A is a sir. Thank you, kind human. Let's go with that. All right, a few more minutes left here. If you guys have any questions, definitely throw them out there. And then one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to keep doing these live events. So I'll post, and I'm going to do different times so that folks that couldn't join this time can join one in the future. So I'll try to get one of these per week. I do one for the Mealworm Farming Co-op group that I'm a part of. That's on Facebook. Definitely check that out, especially if you're raising mealworms. It is mealworm specific. Every now and then we throw out some superworm questions, some dubia questions, but the primary group is mealworms. But folks that have been raising, for years are there, as well as folks that are brand new and needing some help. So come on out. I sound like someone actually knows what I'm talking about. My friends are helping me with my side business. Don't understand it at all. Absolutely. So that's like the other thing for this from a selfish perspective is I don't have anybody nearby to talk about bugs with. So yes, I 100% agree with that. I get a whole lot out of this just because it's fun to talk about it. A lot of times you'll get the kind of look, right? What do you do? I'm an insect farmer. So yeah, good stuff. But yeah, if you guys want to hit me up on Facebook Messenger, do that. I'm on Instagram, YouTube here, obviously, TikTok. I have a little bit more fun on TikTok. I post there all the time. YouTube, I do a little bit less frequently. I'm going to try to make a more longer form for YouTube and get it out there. But there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. And then Justin at MidwestMailworms.com. I am going to start doing some consulting. Free one-on-one consulting. So let's get on a Zoom call or just chat on the phone, whatever you're comfortable with, and just kind of walk through, like if you're having problems or if you're curious, if you want to ask questions, open book type scenario. To talk about the business aspect of this. I have 2 part-time employees and myself. I've moved and changed sizes of the farms multiple times. Happy to talk with folks. So I'm going to open up some of my calendar for some of that as well. So if you're curious about that, just shoot me a message, shoot me an email, and be happy to chat. All right, we are gonna close out for the day. I need to get a couple things done and then get some superworms fed. So thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. This will be posted to the YouTube page. They have to process it and check it and make sure there's nothing wrong. But then it'll get posted. So subscribe if you would, so you can get the notification when this is ready, as well as the future lives that I'll do. So thank you all very much. Hope you have a great weekend. Take it easy. Bye all. Ooh, now I have to figure out how to turn this off from the mobile. Slight pause. There we go. All right. Bye, everybody.